let you rule and reign in our hearts again. Increase in us, we pray. Unveil while we're made. Come set our hearts ablaze with hope, like wildfire in our very souls. Holy Spirit, come invade us now. We are your church. We need your power in us.
So, it's the last message of our Frontline Sundays. And I think if I had to give it a particular headline, I would say that this one is, we need each other. We need each other. And it's been quite interesting in our daytime fellowship group this week. We had a discussion about the whole business of being needed. In the daytime fellowship group, we're reading Ruth Rice's book that's all about well-being. And a lot of that is all about slowing down and doing life in a better balanced way. So I've been finding it quite interesting with this call to action, if you like, that's in today's passage. And the idea that we can slow down and pray and look after our own well-being in the way that we need to for this present time. And I was there, going from one side to how do we marry those two things? So I thought I would start off with that, because it strikes me that quite a lot of the need that we respond to in our lives is actually one-directional. The needs that we're responding to, the needs of family, the needs of work, the needs of the interests that we hold outside of both of those things. And if we're not careful, then in responding to those ever-increasing amounts of care that we need to give to others can be detrimental to our own well-being. And we had some discussions in the group about how certain professions, like pastors, for example, are people who very much are giving out to the needs of others, and doctors too, I think, and teachers and all sorts of people. And sometimes we do give out, responding to the needs of others, and we don't look into our own well-being. But when I looked further, I realised that when we look into the meaning of this passage, we find that central point is not one-directional giving in response to the needs of others, but that when we live out our faith together, we actually need one another, and we need to be encouraged. Why do we need that encouragement? Well, in the outside world, the week can be hard. Becky's week will have its challenges when she sets eyes with it on Monday. Melanie's will, Nikki's will, mine will, and all of yours will. And that is the true whether we're in employment or working at home or whether we're in the community. And it also depends on what we've got going on in our personal lives as well. It's actually easy and maybe understandable for our faith to sit on the back burner in those situations. But if we do that, like the pan that's taken off the heat, we actually grow cooler and we need warming up again. So the writer of Hebrews is seeking to encourage us in three important ways if we look into that passage. First of all, the writer encourages us to draw near to God. Now, this letter was written for a Jewish audience. There's a clue in the name, isn't there? Letter to the Hebrews. And of course, the Jewish audience was one whose Bible was the Old Testament. And within the Old Testament, drawing near to God was something that was reserved just for the priests. In the Old Testament, the priests were the ones who were chosen and were separated out just for that purpose, the purpose of drawing near to God. But But the writer reminds us that actually Jesus changed all of that. Jesus became the way through his death and his resurrection, that all of us can draw near to God. It is, though, a choice. God is always near to us. And if you pass the poster that we've got in the foyer here, it's been there a while because I still like it. It talks about God always being near and not needing to have any social distance. It would be a reminder of its time, I think, if I still got it in years to come. We need to be in the right place to connect, and we need to be intentional about connecting with God, not to leave him on the back burner. The second thing the writer says is that we can have complete assurance of our faith because we've been given that new identity. Remember the discussions we had last week here? You know, who are we? First and foremost, we are daughters and sons of the living God. And we're encouraged to focus on that and think about how marvellous that is. I hope you've got the postcard that we gave out last week that had all the descriptions of who we are. And if you didn't get one last week, there's some at the back. Have it up near your mirror or somewhere so that you can look and see what God says about each of us. And get into the habit maybe of thinking about those job descriptions that we talked about. The job descriptions that start with who we are. I am Becky, who is the daughter of the living God. Or any of us who are sons and daughters of the living God. Thirdly, the writer encourages us, reminds us that we can experience peace in the continuing reality of being able to bring to God all those things that do weigh heavily on our hearts. And we have the experience of being forgiven as an ongoing process. The writer talks about us being cleansed in the same way as when our bodies are being washed in pure water. And it does strike me that finding peace is something that is just impossible to put a price on, but yet we can experience that freely through our relationship with Jesus. So those things are the background to what we are being asked to do. Those are the things that support and comfort us as we go about our lives as Christian people. But then the writer tells us to spur one another on to do good works. Now, spurring is a really strong word. It has connotations of inciting or maybe provoking people to do those things. The New Living Translation, which is one that I often use, has the word motivate rather than spur. And I think that probably gives us a more contemporary understanding of what we are to do. But either way, the strength of the word that's used, whether it's spurring, provoking, or motivating, underlines the importance of helping one another to live out our faith on our front lines. Let's be honest, like the people the writer's referring to, we can all suffer from compassion fatigue. We can get weary of doing good. And quite frankly, sometimes those that we may seek to help might be ungrateful. They might be manipulative. And although we don't like to think it, there can be times when we try and help that we simply get taken for a ride. There are those occasions. And however hard we try, it does seem sometimes that nothing actually changes. And that's very discouraging and very dispiriting. And that's when we really need the help and support of one another. When we really need not to allow one another to give up. When we really need, and it's in this text that Ian shared with us as well, to keep our eyes fixed on the challenge of living our lives in the front line and staying motivated. And the writer also tells us to keep meeting together. So why is that there? Well, the emphasis on front lines is not intended to suggest that our life together isn't important too. And when we come together in worship, we share our common faith. We share the beliefs and the values that underpin it. And let me say to you, we absolutely need that too. We need to take out things from Sunday worship that influence the rest of our week. And when we're able to come together on a Sunday, it affirms and it underpins the significance of who we are as a community of the baptized and the people of God, and the significance of what we do as those people for the rest of the week. So what does that look like? This is something else that's been exercising me this week as I've been going about my work on the various front lines. What does it look like in a post-COVID world, the one that we're emerging gradually into? Well, it strikes me that those challenges need to be responded to in new ways. If we look back to that dim and distant past before COVID, we had challenges in our church and lots of churches in the numbers of people available, and people working probably far too hard and trying to do lots of things that they couldn't always keep up with. So I feel that in the post-COVID era, God is telling us to go gently, to realise, and this is something I've been realising, that not everything that will make a difference in this season will actually need a large team or a rota or a programme. Some things will, but some things don't. And one of the key elements of well-being in the book that we've been studying, and we were thinking about this week, is taking notice. Being able to take notice of the things that are around you. And so I think one of the things God is asking us to do is to take notice of what we see around us, and then to be agile. That's a very in word at the moment, to be agile in our response. So for me, small gatherings such as the drop-in on next Saturday, pastors drop in for coffee, is one such thing. It's not a coffee morning, it's just the pastor putting the kettle on and sitting and talking around a table. But yet it's a place where we can get to know one another again. Last time when we were chatting, we had ideas of things that we could do, and it was most certainly encouraging. The fact that people didn't go home till 12:30 meant that was really encouraging. They didn't want to go, so there was plenty to talk about. And we can take well-targeted action. Talking to somebody this week, the person that we helped with Acts 435, I realised how difficult it was around here to get second-hand uniform for the comp. And so, as I've told you, Hazel and I have now started collecting uniform, setting up a free cycle rail. And that small action reached the 3,000 people with a few clicks of the button on Facebook, and people were sharing it on. Didn't need a team, it just needed some responsive action to a need. And when we go back into the world of work, I remember times in my previous work with the local authority when actually small conversations were the ones that were important. And bigger projects evolved organically through noticing what was available and combining talents and efforts. And I think I realised then, and I'm sharing with you now, that God works in us and through us in more ways than we actually know at the time. So we spent a lot of time apart in these past 3 months. And for some people, being apart from gathered church may be their preferred way. But yet I want to underline that our life together, whether it's on Sunday or in midweek groups and all of that, does remain important. Sunday worship is where we come before God together. It is where we're reminded of the core elements of our faith. It is also where we teach and guide and challenge and equip and encourage and love. And also, importantly, and this is what we're going to do as we end the service, it's where we commission one another for our lives on the front line. So that's what we're going to do.
Gathered,
welcomed,
celebrated,
restored,
gathered together,
encouraged,
supported,
loved,
reminded who God is,
hearts awed by His majesty,
eyes seeing fresh,
the wonder of grace,
thankful for His awesome, unwavering love,
reminded who I am,
and all I have received.
challenged,
equipped,
renewed,
commissioned,
Ready.
sent.